Okay, so we talked last week about chapter 1 of Daniel, and we saw how chapter 1 dealt with the beginning of the story of Daniel and his friends, the three youth, and how they were taken captives from Jerusalem to Babylon, and they were some of the noble people, maybe the royal people. Uh, they were good looking, they had talents, and we saw how they put purpose in their heart, like they put in their heart not to be defiled with the delicacies of the king. And this was the main theme of chapter 1, how they prevented themselves from doing anything that's considered not faithful to God. Uh, Now, in chapter 2, we'll start reading together. So it says, now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. By the way, the second year, some people say it's not really the second year of his reign because, um, like we saw in chapter 1, that he actually had the kids, had the people that were taken captives for 3 years to be prepared to serve him. So when they were done and they started working for him, it couldn't be the second year of his reign. So some people say when in chapter 1 and when he was actually uh, like helping or when he invaded Jerusalem, he wasn't the king of Babylon, but his father was, and he was helping him. But this is the second year of his actual reign after his father died. So in the beginning it was him and his father, and now it's only him. So that's the second year of his reign. Some other people have different opinions about this. So it says, now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. And you notice here he says dreams, not one dream. So it looks like there may have been multiple dreams, or uh, like parts of different dreams, but put together. He couldn't remember exactly, but he knew that there was something troubling him about it. And said, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. So because of these dreams. So sometimes people dream about things and they forget. Sometimes it's or most of the time dreams are just like a product of what we do during the day, things that we are maybe like looking forward to do, things that we are scared of, so they come out at night during our dreams. But here there was something special about this set of dreams that he couldn't get over it. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dream. So these are all the wise people of Babylon. And Babylon was famous for its wise people. And the Chaldeans are also, they say that name was given not only to the nation of the Chaldeans, but specifically to the wise people of Babylon at that time, at the time of Daniel. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have had a dream. So now he's saying one dream, although it may have been like a set of different dreams, but they add up to one thing. I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. So this may be one of two things. Like either he did not just want to tell them his dream, and we'll see why now, or he really couldn't remember the whole dream exactly, and he wanted someone not only to interpret the dream but also to actually tell him what the dream was. Then the Chaldeans, the wise people, spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. So, the normal thing is they asked him, just tell us what your dream was, and we will tell you the interpretation. And notice here that they were sure about the interpretation. They were like sure about themselves that they were able to interpret any dream. So they were very wise, and they were like, uh, yeah, they had this kind of little bit of ego that they could tell him any interpretation of any dream that he says. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. So this, in this verse, you can see a couple of things. First, that the king yeah, we can see a little bit about, yeah, know a little bit more about his temper. First of all, he got angry very quickly with them, and he was asking something unrealistic. No one ever would know someone else's dream. That's not in the capability of humans. um, I mean, they can maybe interpret the dream, according to their wisdom, according to the knowledge, to what they learned, but it's not possible to actually tell the dream. Um, so also you can see that he was a violent king. He said, if you don't give me the dream and the interpretation, you will be cut in pieces. But you can also see that he kind of gave them a little bit of a reward if to kind of uh, make it appealing for them to search. So he said, however, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. So he knew that these people were after these things. They were after gifts, rewards, and great honor. So he said, I will give you that if you tell me the dream. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation. So they said again, if you tell us the dream, we will give you the interpretation. The king answered and said, I know for certain that you would gain time because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. So he said, he told them, I know what you're doing. You're trying to buy time. So either I will change my mind, or maybe, if I tell you the dream, like, you're going to say just any interpretation and it may come true and you will be saved. Or you're buying time for me to change my mind, and I'm not gonna kill you. So he said, therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give me its interpretation. So he was asking for something impossible. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. So you can see here that um, this was God's plan, that when Daniel is going to, give the king the interpretation, the dream and its interpretation, it came out of their mouth that this is not a work of a man. There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. So they told him, like, what you're asking for is not in the capability of a human being. And that's why it never happened before that any king or ruler asked such a thing, because it's impossible. It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. So, the result of this story is what is a testimony by the wise men of Babylon, that if there is someone that can actually tell this dream and the interpretation, it's got to be something that's coming from God, not from a man. And they are right about this. For this reason, the king was angry and very furious. And you can see Nebuchadnezzar's temper here, which you will also see in the story a couple of chapters later, in the story of the three youth when they were thrown in the fiery furnace. Very furious, and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out and they began killing the wise men. So they actually started killing some of the wise men, and so part of that was Daniel and the three youth. They were some of the wise men. In fact, if you remember from chapter 1, the Bible said that they were found more knowledgeable and wiser than all of the other people that were being trained with them. And they began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Notice something here before we move on, that Daniel and the three youth were not in the picture here. So we don't know why. We don't know if maybe, and there are different opinions. Some people say maybe Nebuchadnezzar didn't trust them that much, although he knew that they were wiser, but he went to his own people, not to the foreigners. Some people say that when he called the astrologers, because the astrologers and the wise men envied Daniel and the three youth, they didn't want to actually tell them anything about this. So if there is because they thought, it's just something simple. The king is going to tell us a dream. We're going to give him the interpretation, and that's it. And we will get a reward. So they didn't want Daniel and the three youth to be rewarded. That's another opinion. So when the decree came to Daniel, he didn't know anything about this before. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch. Arioch was uh, the captain of the king's guard who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. So he was the one in charge of killing the wise men. So notice here in the beginning of the verse, it says then that with counsel and wisdom. So when Daniel spoke with Arioch, he spoke with counsel and wisdom. The same as what happened in chapter 1. You remember when Daniel spoke to the chief, to the supervisor of the place they were training at, and it said that he spoke with wisdom and he spoke politely, and he asked for what he wanted and he got it. The same thing here. So it looks like this was something in Daniel's character, in his personality, to always ask politely and ask wisely. So it says that with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree from the king so urgent? So he asked again very nicely and politely, why is it so urgent that he wants to kill everyone? Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Arioch told him the story. This is because he wanted the wise men to tell him his dream, and no one could. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king the interpretation. And of course, this is kind of a dangerous move. If Daniel didn't have faith, of course, Daniel here had faith in God, because uh, the king didn't give him much time, probably a day or so. And if in that day Daniel didn't, or maybe a couple of days, we don't know, but if in that short period of time Daniel couldn't answer the king, what would happen? He would kill him even like more violently than the other people, because he promised him something and he delayed the killings. But Daniel put in, yeah, or like thought in his heart that the only one who can interpret this is God. So let me ask God. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret. So, here we find a couple of differences. First, a difference between Daniel and the wise men of Babylon. The wise men of Babylon were sure of themselves. They told the king, yes, tell us the dream and we'll give you the interpretation. Daniel said, let's seek the mercies of God. He relied on God, depended on God, not on himself or his wisdom, although he was very wise. The other difference is between Daniel and King Nebuchadnezzar. That King Nebuchadnezzar, when he had a dream, he was so troubled and he was so furious and he lost his peace, that to the extent that he ordered all his wise men to be killed. This is not very smart, because if all the wise men are killed, he's not going to find any people to fill in their spots. And with Daniel, it was the complete opposite. Although there was someone knocking at his door to actually kill him, to execute him, what did Daniel do? He very peacefully went in and asked his friends, let's pray together to God for God's mercies. So, this is the difference between someone who has a relationship with God and someone who doesn't. King Nebuchadnezzar, you will hear now that he's the king of kings. He has all kinds of authority in his hand. He has everything. He's the king of the biggest empire in the world at the time. And one dream troubled him so much that he couldn't be at peace with himself. But Daniel, although he was about to be executed, but he had peace because of his relationship with God. This tells us one important thing, to kind of self-evaluate ourselves sometimes. Um, our reactions to different situations tell us if we are at peace with ourselves or not. that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So they were pretty much asking for their lives, asking for themselves not to die. So they said, please, God, give us wisdom so that we don't perish. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. This is something amazing too. The secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. God revealed to him. He revealed to him the dream, the interpretation of the dream, and everything. And Daniel, the first thing that he did was he blessed the God of heaven. You see, this really talks about Daniel, because imagine yourself in Daniel's situation. You are serving the greatest king in the world, and that great king, he dreamt a dream, and he dreamed a dream, and uh, he wanted someone to interpret that dream for him, and he couldn't find anyone. And now even the wise people envied Daniel. So what would Daniel, like, as a normal human being, would do if he knew that dream? He would probably brag about it. He would, like, maybe mock the other people, but he didn't do that because he knew it wasn't him. It wasn't him. He said he blessed the God of heaven. And then he started praying. He said, Daniel answered and said, answered means what? He answered God's revelation. He knew that this was a revelation from God, and he answered that revelation. And he said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. You see, it's very important when we receive something from God to give God the glory. Whatever God gives us, to say, this is yours, it's not mine. And he changes the times and seasons. Now, this is concerning the dream itself, because God showed him the future of the world, of the kingdoms of the world. That's the dream that he showed to Nebuchadnezzar and to Daniel, and explained it to them. Changed the times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. What does it mean he gives wisdom to the wise? For the people who are honest in the gift that God gave them, like Daniel was a wise man. God gave him natural knowledge and wisdom, and he was faithful in it. So God gave him more wisdom and more knowledge. Same as what Jesus said, he who is honest in the little, he will be trusted with much. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. He knows what's going to happen. When he showed Daniel the dream, Daniel knew that this was about the future of the world and the kingdoms to come. So he's praising God for his knowledge and wisdom. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You see, it's very nice to always be grateful to God. Thank God. Give thanks to God. O God of my fathers, you have given me wisdom and might. You see, again, he's saying, you have given me wisdom. He did not uh, like say, I am wise. He said, you gave me wisdom and have now made known to me what we asked of you. By the way, the wisest people are the people who give glory to God for the wisdom that they have, not the ones that feel that they are wise of their own. For you have made known to us the king's demand, because you revealed to us his dream. Therefore, Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king, and I will tell the king the interpretation. Now there is something really nice here too. The first thing that Daniel said to him before he said, like, I knew the dream and I can tell him the interpretation, he said, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. You see, that shows how noble and loving Daniel was. Those people who envied him and didn't want him to have a share with them, the first thing that he asked is for them to be spared from death. Because again, even though they didn't like him or they envied him, but these people were, first of all, this was unfair. They were being killed for something that was impossible for them to do. And again, it's the commandment of God to love everyone. He he followed that commandment. He had love in his heart, even for the people who did not love him. So he asked for them to be spared, and then he said, I will tell the king the interpretation. Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king. So he took him to the king quickly and said thus to him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah who will make known to the king the interpretation. Now, you can tell the difference here between Daniel and Arioch. Daniel said, thank you, God, for giving me wisdom. And he didn't attribute anything to himself. But Arioch, on the other hand, he wanted to take some credit and he ran to the king and said, I found someone. Of course, he didn't find anyone. Daniel is the one that did the whole thing by himself. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. If you remember from last time, when Nebuchadnezzar changed their names to reflect some pagan idols. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? So he asked him, he repeated the question because he knew that this was something like not possible. And this is something extremely hard. So he repeated the question. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, you see, this is the testimony of Daniel about God. He said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king, but there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. So he didn't start by saying, yes, I know it. I am better than those other wise men. He said, the only one who could reveal this and did reveal it to me is the God of heaven, who reveals secrets. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. So he told him, yes, I know the dream. God revealed it to me. And this dream concerns what's going to happen later on in the kingdoms of the world. And this is what the dream was. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed about what would come to pass after this, after you, after this kingdom. And he who reveals secrets, God, and he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king. This part is really nice. He said, God didn't reveal this to me because I am wiser than anyone else. Although actually Daniel could have thought that. And God gave him more wisdom than other people. But he said, no, this is not the reason why God revealed this to me, not because I'm wiser than other people. It's because this is God's plan. He wanted to reveal this to me, so I reveal it to you because he wanted to show you this. This kind of reminds us of what Joseph did when his brothers came after many years and he was the second man in Egypt. He said, you meant like evil to me, but God had a plan. And in this plan, yes, it was hard for me, but this was God's plan, and I'm happy with it. This is what Daniel is saying here, that um, God's plan is to reveal this to you, not because I am superhuman or better than anyone else. It's because God wanted to reveal this, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. And maybe, may know the thoughts of your heart. Maybe this dream was God's answer to some of the thoughts of Nebuchadnezzar, because Nebuchadnezzar was one of the greatest kings ever. And maybe he was thinking, like, is there going to be ever another greater empire than mine? What's going to happen to my empire, to Babylon, and so on? So God revealed to him an answer to his questions. So he said, you, O king, were watching, and behold, the great image. And this image was this, what we see here. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. So notice here that this is one statue, one image, although it's going to mean like different eras of different kingdoms to come. This image's head was of fine gold, like we see here, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. And we'll see what everything here means. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands. So while you were watching that image, a stone was cut without any hand. And of course, we'll see that what that means as well. Which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found, and the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So Nebuchadnezzar saw a statue, and this statue, like we saw, was made of part of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and iron mixed with clay. And then there was a big stone that was cut without a hand, and came and crushed that statue into pieces. And the stone itself grew and filled the whole world. So that's the dream. This is the dream. Now we tell the interpretation of it before the king. So now Daniel is going to interpret it. You, O king, are a king of kings. So he told him, you are a king of kings. And they say that this was a common name for some of the kings in that time in Babylon. But also Nebuchadnezzar, like we said, is one of the greatest kings to ever have lived. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And again, you are a king of kings because you are given this by God, not because it's just you. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, meaning that he had complete authority over all the countries under him, whether the people, the animals, everything. He had complete authority. He has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. So who's the head of gold? Nebuchadnezzar, or in general, the Babylonian Empire. So the head was the Babylonian Empire. Notice something here, that God was answering Nebuchadnezzar's question. So he didn't start from before, because his question was, what's going to happen after me? But before Nebuchadnezzar, there was another empire that's not included in this image, which was the Assyrian Empire. So the Assyrian Empire that actually took Israel captives, that was before Babylon, and Babylon defeated them and took over, but it's not included in that image. But after you shall arise, after this kingdom is over, after the Babylonian kingdom is over, shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours. Now, inferior means it's not as powerful as yours, or maybe not as great as yours. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. So there is going to be silver and then bronze. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. So now he talked about four kingdoms. The head of gold was Babylon. Now the silver one, which is the chest and the arms, this is the ones who came after Babylon, which is Persia, the Medo-Persian Empire. And it's inferior to Babylon, but it's still strong. And it's silver because they say that the Persian Empire, they loved to collect money, and silver at that time was money. The bronze is strong, but again is inferior to the silver and gold. So this tells us something, that as the kingdoms, fall and rise, there is a decline in the history of the empires. Although you will see that, like for example, the Roman Empire, the iron is very, very strong, stronger than any of them. But again, there is a decline in general, like as time goes by. And so the third kingdom, the bronze is the Greek. So the gold is Babylon, the silver is Medo-Persia, the bronze is the Greek Empire, and then the iron is the Roman Empire. And it said here, in strong as iron, because the Roman Empire was the strongest empire to ever have ruled the world. In as much as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. And this is exactly what happened. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. So that Roman Empire, after a while, it will be mixed with clay. It will be weakened. It will be divided, and that's exactly what happened. The kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it. It's still the Roman Empire, but it's not as united as before. Just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. And this is exactly what happened to the Roman Empire after they ruled the world for so many centuries. Actually, like being very strong, they started being divided to east and west, and then they started slowly like losing power. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men. So they will mingle with others, they will be weakened, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. They will not adhere or mix with other nations. And the days of these kings, in the days of these kings, so in the time of the Roman Empire, God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And that's exactly what happened. Jesus came in the time of the Roman Empire, and he said the kingdom of God, of the New Testament, in the New Testament, and it became the kingdom of God, which is, uh, from the time of Jesus until now, the church grew and filled all the earth, shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So this kingdom will stand forever. It will take over, but of course, it will not take over by sword or power, or it will take over by uh, the message of Christianity, which is love and and peace. Inasmuch as he saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and of course it was cut without hands because this is actually one of the symbols of the incarnation in the Old Testament, one of the images of incarnation, that God came without the seed of man. Jesus was born of Saint Mary without her being married to a man, just like the stone was cut without a hand, without hands. And in fact, nowadays, like in the Advent season in Kiyak, we actually hear a lot in our praises about the stone that was cut without a hand, being a symbol of the incarnation. Was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. So he said, this is the answer to your thoughts, the answer to your questions that you ask God to reveal to you what's going to happen after you. The dream is certain and its interpretation is sure. Be sure that this is a revelation from God. The dream is from God and the interpretation is sure. So when Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar the dream and he told him the interpretation of the dream, he said that then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face prostrate before Daniel. And of course, this is something that is really hard for Nebuchadnezzar to do to anyone. Nebuchadnezzar would never bow to any person on earth, but he did to Daniel because he saw in him wisdom that is not human, like we said at the beginning of the chapter, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. People back in the days used to worship those who the people who are very wise or do things that are like supernatural like this. They considered them gods. The king answered Daniel and said, truly your God is the God of gods. So here there is something important in this part, that because of the witness of Daniel, because he started by saying he gave all the credit to God, and he told him that from the beginning, God is the one who revealed to me, and not because I'm wiser than other people, and God wanted to reveal to you what's going to happen. So truly your God is the God of gods. That brought a witness from Nebuchadnezzar himself to the God of Daniel. The Lord of Kings and the revealer of secrets. So exactly the same thing that Daniel told him, he said it back. He said, yes, your God is the God of gods, and he's the one that reveals secrets. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon. So even he promoted him even more than what we heard in the first chapter. He became the ruler over all the province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. You see here one other thing too at the end is that um, Daniel was not envious of the people, of the other wise men. They were envious of him. But ultimately, because he had a relationship with God, he ended up being their boss or their administrator or chief, because whoever runs after the glory, it will run away from him. But he was not after the glory, he was after serving God. That's why he got the glory as well. Also, Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So the last part of this chapter is also very beautiful. When Daniel got all this honor and all this credit, he didn't forget about his friends. He didn't forget about um, the people who were with him. So the first thing that he asked the king was to promote his three friends along with him, and he promoted them, but not as much as Daniel. And glory be to God forever. Amen. If anyone has any comments or questions about this chapter, please go ahead. Okay, thank you for being here today. And next Wednesday, we will not have Bible study because it will be the Feast of the Nativity. We'll be in church, and then, God willing, we'll continue the Wednesday after.